Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deeply Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deeply Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 351. Today is Saturday, January 9th, 2021, and I'm glad you could join me today. So I went into work yesterday and I signed off on, what would it be? I signed a form saying I was happy with how everything had come together. And I commented to the technician, I was like, I've had no trouble transitioning to 2021 this year. It was like, I often spend the month of January writing the previous year. It's like, no problem this year, all ready for 2021. But, what would it be? That does not mean that, 2021 is going to be better or worse than 2020. There's certainly events this week in the Capitol with like a mob. It's just like so it would be the case where like my own feelings on the matter being not surprised something like this has occurred, but also like disappointed that it did end up happening, if that makes any sense. So definitely meditating a little bit on the dissonance of that, or whatever, the stuff that's happening in our nation as a whole. Well, not being able to do too much about it as I, try to keep safe. So we'll see where this year leads us. Because I would say, in my own mind, 2019 was a much rougher year. So, we'll make it all work out. So, I feel like I have quite a lot to share with you guys this week, despite the fact that I am, back at work. So, not nearly as much crafting time, but what would it be? I am currently working my way through Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is, or would it be? Like, very interesting watch for the times we are in now. And it is on Netflix, so that makes it a little bit easier. I feel like when I watched it for the first time on YouTube TV, they didn't do quite as good a job of, or would it be? Netflix is pretty good at that if there is some sort of ending scene that they actually put you through the ending credits, whereas skipping the credits to go to the next episode. So I am picking up little tidbits that I had missed the first time I watched it, which was interesting. But what would it be? I would say part of the joy of watching it is actually having the mystery be revealed. So if you haven't watched it before, I think that was one aspect of it that was very joyful, that I will not be able to get now that I know the identities. Though, going back to one particular section, they did try to, at the very least, hint you to the fact that the identities were maybe, or what would it be? They did some foreshadowing for the identities. After the episode last week, I did end up getting a chance to sit down and finish and stuff both of these Joris the dragons. And actually I was just sitting down and pulling out some ends that I did not adequately weave in, which I will have to, whatever, see if I can't. Yeah, so you can see some of the ends that I need to better hide. But the nice thing about stuffed animals is that really all you do is you take a needle of some sort and plunge it in far enough that it comes, whatever, it goes out of the eye, and then you're good to go. So not too crazy there. So I knit this one out of the Sassy Sheep Renaissance in the peacock colorway. So a very charming sort of green, blue, purple that's showing up on the screen. Pretty blue. There's also some like teal in there as well. And I knit this one out of Urban Girls Virginia Fingering in the Loud and Proud colorway. So I'd originally bought this yarn to make an Empower People bandana, and while there is purple in here, it is actually primarily a green. So this one was a, what would it be, hand painted in blocks yarn, and this guy is a speckle that pretty much showed like zero pooling whatsoever. So very cute. They're adorable little feet and arms and elbows, and the tails are a modification that I ended up adding to it. I managed to make maybe a little bit more narrow of a tail on this guy after rereading my instructions and making this guy maybe a little bit more blunt, but whatever, such is life. And some of it just boils down to stuffing as well. So glad to see the end of these projects. I'll be mailing them to my sisters after I finish some baby hats for both of them. And we'll go from there. So this is Joris and Anna Wilshut pattern, and Sassy Sheep, which I believe is no longer in business, and Urban Girl Yarns, which is in business. So not too crazy there. And what would it be? The eyes are pretty small, but they are sort of a crucial part of it, so we're just gonna go with it. And I have eyes that can be used for smaller stuffed animals in the future. So, and they're like nice and huggable and adorable. Makes me happy. So that is the story there. So I can't remember if I had finished the knitting or not on this, but now that they're stuffed, they're properly done. And I didn't end up doing any blocking or steaming whatsoever. I think when you stuff these guys, that ends up filling it out really nicely. So there's that. Toss those on the bed because there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, I also feel like things are a little bit off today just because it took a very long time to get out of bed and get ready today, so as you do. So on the work in progress front, I did end up getting a ton done this week on the Viajante. So the Viajante is a Martina Bem pattern, and this has been hanging out on the floor, which probably is a good way to get it covered in all sorts of strange spinning fuzzballs. But I can get this back properly on the needles. So Viajante is a Martina Bem pattern that uses one skein of Volmisa lace to make a delightful poncho shawl body tube. And I am knitting this for my cousin because she remembered 5 years later that she wanted one. So the darker portions of this are actually a reddish purple, but what would it be? It'd be the case where not super duper distracting on the pooling front, I would say. And we're definitely getting to the point where, oh, how do you slip off again? Definitely getting to the point where the diameter needle that I have it on may be a little bit too small. So I might need to fix that today to make things go really well. But last week I had about 174 grams. This week I have 161 remaining. So this is what 4% looks like right now. 4%, I don't know, was probably 4% is 15 rows. So I didn't end up getting a lot of progress on this. This week was definitely much more focused on spinning for whatever reason. But such is life, whatever. So this is definitely my longer term project. This is the 5th week of the thing, and I am now at the 50% mark, so that's pretty cool. The ball looks noticeably depleted because I'm pulling from the outside. I'm using my Inkerworks Lazy Kate with a yarn caddy, so not too crazy there. What I end up doing is I have the bedside table has a book I intend to read and this on there. And so that ends up sort of being the right height differential to get it to feed nicely where I'm sitting. It doesn't feed quite as well if it's on the floor, if that makes any sense. So if it's a little taller than me, it seems to work a little bit better. It is my in the dark, don't need to think too hard sort of knitting. So I have another 20% to go, at least, 20 to 25% to go before I'll end up starting the beads in mesh. But that should be fun. I am looking forward to that. But it isn't like I'm bored with this particular, it's more like I just have all this newfound spinning mojo. I don't know, whatever. So I did end up wanting to show these guys together. Well, actually, no. We're not to spinning yet. There's still a little bit of knitting to go. So what I have here is the leftovers from my Joris project. So I had about 77 grams left of the Sassy Sheep Renaissance, and I had 19 grams left of the Urban Girl Yarn Virginia. So based on feedback from my sister, I ended up making a toddler-sized baby hat with lots and lots of ribbing, with the hope that it could be cuffed and that it could fit the little heads a little bit longer. Though this, like, I think that I could totally force this upon my head as well, so I don't know. I might also opt for a smaller sized hat as well. So I just went to the Tin Can Knits Barley pattern because I do trust Alexis and Emily to have good numbers for all of the sizes, and used the cast on number for the toddler size barley hat to create my own little brioche ribbed hat for this. So that has been fun. Not too crazy there. And then I'm using their number for how long to knit or how long to knit before beginning to start the decreases from there. So I'll probably end up using at least a little bit more. But I am almost out of the Urban Girl, so you can see that I am going to run out pretty soon. So I ended up grabbing some of this Cyborg's Craft Room yarn that I had left over from my Find Your Fade that I'll end up incorporating because the dyeing style is similar even if the colors are not. And then I'll probably, or would it be? It'd be the case where I was trying to figure out what yarn I had in stash that was most similar to the Urban Girl. And so that meant sort of digging through the stash and figuring out where I had hidden all of my leftovers, which I will show to you very soonly. So in the past I have made baby hats with the Wollmeise leftovers, but what would it be? A lot of my Wollmeise leftovers right now are actually not so much the crazy brights that I was sort of going for with the baby hat endeavor, but like grandpa sock leftovers and Dear Sweet Little One sock leftovers. So what would it be? I didn't really want to use those ones. I also do have quite the rainbow of Wollmeise 100%, which is their 100% merino fingering as well. But whatever. So I know that I don't want to go for warm colors for one of my sisters, or whatever, for one of my sisters, because I know for a fact her, what would it be, her other two kids are definitely redheads. So I'm trying to stick with the jewel tones. But for like my other sister, I probably could get away with warm tones, but not for, what would it be? Not for one of them. So it is hilarious, but such is life. So here is the brioche hat, and I'm really loving how this is turning out. This is the first, I think this is the first time I've done brioche in the round, so there's only, at this one spot that I'm actually at right now, there is the transition, which is a little bit annoying because you're going wrap to wrap, and then there is the transition where you're going from brioche purl to brioche knit, which is easier. And it's probably a good thing that I have my little leftovers from the cast on hanging out down there. But I do think it's turned out to be a very charming little hat, so the Urban Girls ends up bringing some brightness and lightness to it, and then the Sassy Sheep yarn is sort of bringing in that jewel tone goodness, and the Urban Girls actually has a decent amount of yellow in it, which maybe wasn't quite as apparent, but when it teams up with the purple, it does result in quite a bit of fun contrast. So I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. I am liking the squish. I just love brioche. I'm not doing any sort of fancy pattern. I'm just, or would it be, just keeping it pretty chill. We'll probably end up, and I'm using the exact same double pointed needles that I used for both of the Joruses that I ended up making. So that may result in something that's a little bit tighter, but because it's just so stinking stretchy, okay, this wouldn't fit on my head. But yeah, it's definitely, definitely, what would it be, baby hat. Though it does seem, whatever. This is the struggle that I have whenever I knit a baby hat, which is, oh my gosh, it's so small, and oh my gosh, it's so big. So, as you do. So, it might be the case where I make 2 of these bigger hats for my one sister, because she already has a couple of smaller hats, and then make 2 bigger and 1 smaller for the other sister, because she doesn't have any small ones. And I don't know whether or not I want to. Oh no. Like, I still want to make one of those adorable little bonnets. I don't know if this is, would it be? My one sister's like, it's not as useful, so. But who knows, everyone has different opinions. I do not have any first-hand experience with which to assess the usefulness of bonnets versus beanies. But whatever. Or maybe I need to ask my sister-in-law for the unbiased second opinion. So we shall see how everything ends up coming together. But I will be running out of the Urban Girl soon. I'll start to incorporate this one. If I don't like how this one is coming together, then I'll just hold this one doubled and call it a day. I'm hoping to be able to get one more hat out of this, so or would it be, because this is yarn without a plan. I ended up using about half of it for the Joris, so in this case it's more like figuring out ways of using it all up, getting it out of my life. But I am really enjoying working on the brioche hat, so I will knit away on the scraps. So, in some pretty exciting news, I did end up doing a bit of a separation with my scraps. So I now have a smaller than gallon Ziploc bag of not wool scraps that I ended up putting together of things that have just been pretty tenacious in the stash. And then what I ended up doing was separating out my wool scraps into sort of bigger amounts here and smaller amounts here. So there are like a variety of leftovers in here from various sock projects, but all of them are mostly wool or wool blends. A lot of them are actually on the more luxurious side, and so what that means, at least for me, is I may end up doing something scrappy with the more luxurious ones. So this has whatever leftovers from my Inara wrap in it, and those are, I'm pretty sure those are merino cashmere silk, or I think they are, because they're nice. And then I have my beachy gradient from Miss Babs in here. So, I know. So this stuff isn't, for the most part, sock yarn, but who knows, whatever. So it is possible that I might end up doing something scrappy with these leftovers. I'm not sure, but like this is totally a, or what would it be? This bag here probably has amounts that are closer to like hat amounts in here. And I think it's going to be like really fun to take this blue and yellow and make something with it, or whether or not I want to use some of this mustache in it. And this is a color that, while it does have blue in it, I'm just not a pastel person. Whatever, you just have to accept the fact that it's just not me. And then I have some, I don't know, there's all sorts of fun stuff in here. Like this is self-striping yellow and green, so I'll figure something out. This guy is also self-striping as well, so I know, but this is my bag of bigger scraps, and then this one is my bag of pretty small scraps. So I can definitely see using some of these up in various sorts of things. But I pulled them out so that they would at the very least just be a little bit closer on hand. And I think I'm going to knit the remainder of the baby hats with that instead of the Woolmeister this year. As you do. I figure hats probably aren't as likely to be, I don't know, I'm perfectly okay with the washability of all the things in there, so it should be fine. Whatever. So that is out for its creative inspiration purposes, and it was definitely the case. We're in the middle of Spinner's Night last night, pulling it out and being like, as you do. So one of my ponderings right now is when it comes to starting the next big project, am I going to end up starting my hinterland sweater, which I will be knitting out of this Three Waters Farm blue fin and this nest fiber that I spun in the style of Spin Cycle. So I had both of these out. I did end up giving this guy a wash. I haven't sat down and figured out if it had plumped up a little bit more. Like, this looks pretty solidly fingering at this point, and it is really stinking gorgeous. I'm very excited with how this turned out. So the question would be, and I think I should just go for it at this point, is actually sitting down and making this a cable. So this will end up succeeding in spreading out the color like just that little bit more, and getting things to mix a little bit more, because this is a lace weight instead of a fingering. And this guy is looking pretty solidly like a fingering now, so I think it makes sense to sit down and do that work. And what would it be? The more I mix the colors in this, I think, the more gorgeous it's gonna end up being. So this guy had like a purple, magenta, red, reddish orange, yellow, and white. And so there are some sections in there that are just white, and that wasn't my intention. As I'm sort of learning how to make these marled yarns for myself, I ended up actually making a pretty good breakthrough on that. So I'm taking part in the Complete Twisted Arbitrary Spin the Bin 2021, and this is actually the first yarn that I have finished from my bin. So this is 3 different samples that I ended up making in Clemis and Clemis classes. So I have I have 2 sets of Rologs and 1 bat in this. So the bat, I believe, is Leicester Long Wool. And then I have 2 different sets of Rologs. One set of Rologs was blended with sort of a swampy green and a blue, and the other set of Rologs was a bright acid green and black, sort of in sections. And this has created something that's actually very similar to Spin Cycle. And then I ended up applying them together as a 3-ply, and there are a couple sections in here which are just the green and blue roll logs chain plied on themselves. I was pretty darn close to the same amount of yardage on everything, but whatever. I ran out of the bat first, which I think ends up making a decent amount of sense because the roll logs turned out super fluffy. So the roll logs were merino, and they were very soft and delightful. So, like, I wasn't sure about how everything was going to combine on this, but I am super pleased with how it turned out. It exceeded my expectations. And like or would it be? It'd be the case where the Leicester long wool does add a little bit of tooth to this, but because it is mostly merino, it is, would it be, fairly soft and fluffy. So super duper pleased with how this guy turned out. So this is 3 ounces and 400, I think it was like 430 yards, something in that ballpark. We could, might be able to look and see. Go to myself. I think. Oh dear. I don't know. I might need to recount this again, which would be annoying. But I do believe it was in that ballpark. So this is it doesn't look like it's a light fingering, but it is. So light fingering 3-ply, whatever. Would it be very exciting to get a bin spin done so quickly. I think that having these projects ends up being sort of a really good motivator for me, because would be like, I think one part of it is knowing that having some smaller quantities of hand spun is very usable as like accents and fun things in like sweater yokes and stuff like that. In addition to, what would it be, like most of the fiber that I put in my bin this year isn't even in my Ravelry stash. But it ended up adding up to fairly significant projects in the end. So getting more than 400 yards out of 3 ounces is really cool in my book. And then where I ended up going from there was I ended up taking my, or would it be, I ended up grabbing sort of the next spin. So this brown is Corriedale that I ended up carding in my first bat class. So the Leicester long wool was fed into the drum carder straight on. The Corriedale was fed in at a 45-degree angle to make a very lofty, more woolen style bat. And then I'm working on spinning orange Rolox to play with it. Now, as you guys know, I'm not a big fan of the brown. I am not a big fan of the orange, but I think that this project is going to end up turning out really cool, and I definitely reserve the right to send the yarn to someone who I do know loves these things. And so this is actually the last Rolog. For some reason, the merino Rologs I felt like spun up a lot nicer. I'm pretty sure that this orange is not merino, or would it be just because it seems like it's a much longer staple? And it's just what it would be. I'm not enjoying spinning the orange nearly as much as I was my other set of Rologs, but whatever. So let's see if we can't Okay, we can get this in the shot. So here is what I have spun so far. So the Corriedale bat is about an ounce. The Rologs were about an ounce, adding up to 2 ounces, which would be the minimum amount for the Spin the Bin project. And I am so close to being done. I ended up drafting this out a little bit for my own amusement. And it is spinning up really, really fine. So even though I am on the biggest ratio for my regular flyer, it's still turning out pretty fine. But yeah, so I should be able to finish that up actually pretty soon. Ply it all up, and I'll have another fun skein to show you guys next week. And I've actually pulled out, or I did have my bin sitting precariously on top of my Romney fleece. But I think what's gonna end up happening is I'm going to spin all of the baggies of fiber that I have for sort of these smaller quantities, and then get to some of the other projects that I was planning on from the bin. So the next one that I am planning on doing is this BFL spin. So I have 2 sets of Rologs, one of them being mixed, one of them being color blocked, and then I have some carded sliver that's also in a brown to white BFL gradient. So this is all the same fiber type, and I think we'll end up making a really gorgeous skein. So there'll be this overall feeling of the brown to cream gradient, and then having some more of this mixed one, and then this guy will actually be sort of fractally. I'm realizing now as I'm talking through this, like that this is going to end up being sort of a mild form of like a 3-ply fractal. So this should be a lot of fun. There is a distinct possibility that I'll dye the finished skein, but who knows? I don't know. I probably do need to accept the fact that I need, even though, or would it be that I do need some lighter things in my life, but it can't all be super saturated jewel tones all the time. But I figured that this was going to be a pretty good next step. And then I'll end up deciding from there which spin I'd like to get to next, whether that be, because I think, or would it be, like I've just been pulling out a pair of bags and like this one or this one in the various meetups that I've been doing. So I might then move on to the bigger of that spin. So I believe that this guy is a 2-ounce bat, and then this is 1 ounce of white Rologs with locks in it. So border Leicester with mohair locks for these Rologs. And then this is mostly white base with pink and like with mostly pink add-ins. So not my usual choice. I probably won't do any over dyeing with this one. I think part of the charm of this guy is having those bright pops of color show through. So what would it be? And I think I'm just sort of trying to spin things in the order of the mojos, so it'd be the case where the more unsure I am about how it's going to turn out, the more likely I'm going to do it now because I'm excited about setting it aside. And I'll be getting into some of the longer projects, or I think I'll be getting into some of the longer projects later on in the year. But it has been exciting to go through the stash and figure out what's exciting me or not. So after I get this bin mostly empty, I'll be able to fit the box that it's sitting on top of in there, and I think that'll be good for the compacting of the stash that's going on. So I don't know whether or not or would it be, it felt like I was making holes in the stash, and then when I repackaged it all, it seemed to take up the same amount of volume as before. Though I think part of that is because some things that were sitting on top are now inside, and so I just handily filled all those holes up. Who knows? So, what would it be? Yeah. Yeah, no, I think my plan of sort of working through my baggies of samples until those are all done is a pretty decent plan. It's just, what would it be? But, like, I'm alive, or would it be? It'd be the case where, I am feeding my creativity by placing constraints on what I'm doing, and that constraints help me be more creative, if that makes any sense. So, or would it be? So it'd be the case where I have not yet sat down to figure out like, or would it be to like plot out my Carl the Fog spin that is in my bin. It was more like, let's run through as many of these Rologs as possible. And I would say the process has resulted in me what would it be? I think it has resulted in me being what would it be? I am not desirous of getting a blending board to make Rologs with, because while they are fun little beautiful fiber preps, it isn't as enjoyable for me to spin as tops or bats, so good to know. It certainly isn't the case where it's convincing me to spin thicker, so. Oh well. So, checking to make sure I have covered all of my bases this week, and it does look like I have, so that's lovely. What would it be? And then I guess the only other thing is trying to figure out which way I end up breaking for the next sweater that I'm going to start, because nothing like laying out your sweater stash to acknowledge it's a little bit out of control. So it'll be interesting to see how I, or what would it be, whether or not I end up deciding to start the Andrea Mowry Weekender, or if I end up starting the Jennifer Steingass Hinterland. We'll see. This probably involves applying exercise, so there will be at least a little bit of delay with that, but I don't know. I'm not sure which way I end up going, or if I need to select something that ends up being a heavier weight, just because I'm definitely appreciating my thicker sweaters living here and feel like I do not have enough thick sweaters. So, or would it be the case where when I'm feeling chilly, my Delancey is the one that I put on in order to feel proper warm. And I'm not quite sure why I'm not using my fingering weight sweaters as much, but they would probably also make me feel warmer as well. Oh, well, whatever. So there may be some silliness in knitting a cotton linen blend weekender, so even though it would be worsted, it just wouldn't be as cozy as wool. Oh well. So, I'm trying to think of if there's anything else, but I think that covers it all. So, with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So, take care, guys. Bye-bye.